So now we're going to talk about the challenges in cybersecurity and for the power industry and what we can see with the increase in digitalization. Almost on a daily basis, we can read in the news about different attacks happening all over the world. A few years back ago, we could read about Stuxnet, the first digital weapon that hit Iran. And last year, there were several attacks against the Ukrainian power grid, shutting it down for many hours on many occasions. And this summer in 2017, several hundreds and thousands of computers were locked in a ransomware. So how come this happens over and over again? Well, one of the key issues is complexity. If we look at the complexity of one software, simple software like a web browser, you have hundreds and thousands of software files dependent on each other in a very complex network. So it's very difficult for one person or even a team of persons to handle this complexity, which means that you have thousands of software vulnerabilities waiting for someone to exploit them in an attack. If we then raise our eyes and look on the next level, for a company that has one of these softwares and then they have thousands of these softwares, which are also very dependent on each other. So you have a big complex networks of thousands of softwares, and then you add business processes, you add people, you add networks and infrastructure. You have a graph-like complexity network that no one can really handle in a good way. And then we talk about the next generation with smart grids, smart cities, connected vehicles, the cloud and everything else. And then you start connecting these to each other. You have millions of components connected with then as many threats as someone can exploit. Now we've mainly been focusing on the complexity of the internal structure, the complexity of the IT that helps the power business. That's only one of the main challenges here. It's one of the biggest, but it's only one of them. As we can see, there are several others. One is that it's really difficult to get people with the right skills in this area and also with the right quality. You can also see that the business demands are really increasing. You're asking for more functionality every day. You're asking for the IT to be agile and flexible so you can make changes very fast. And at the same time, it needs to be secure. We can also see an external pressure with the rules and regulations being put in place, like the GDPR, EU rules that are coming into place 2018. Can also see that the external threat is becoming both bigger and more complex. So it's no longer enough to take care of the simple things. One of the key things with this is that the devil is in the details. That's the thing with security. If you have one loose link, that's the thing that someone will exploit. But still, when you have this big complex network of things, you have to have a holistic view. You can't only look at a few details, because if you do that, you will miss the big picture and probably some other details that you haven't considered. One of the things today is that you're mainly working qualitatively. You have people with opinions and you have politics, and that's how you make decisions. This needs to be more quantitative and data-driven. Otherwise, this big complexity issue can't be handled. A second thing is that this needs to be automated. If someone's going to work on this and do it manually, you will be forced to work with these, the lack of skills with people and so on. So this really needs to be automated. Within an enterprise, there are plenty of stakeholders that are asking for cybersecurity type of analysis. Not once a year, like it was 10 years ago, but almost on a daily basis. What risks are there? This newest attack that happened yesterday, are we vulnerable to that too? These type of questions need to be answered. So with these challenges I've been describing, it almost sounds like this is an impossible task and something we can't deal with in the future. But I don't believe that's true. I believe that there are solutions, and one of them could definitely be the computer-aided design tool analogy. In mature engineering disciplines, like when you're building a bridge or a car or an airplane, You use software tools that help you to design this artifact, and then you can make simulations in this tool to see if it actually is good or not. When you're building a bridge, you stress test it to see that it actually holds for high winds and heavy trucks before you actually build the bridge. Would you fly in an airplane that no one has really considered the risks in a quantitative way? Probably not. It's the same with cybersecurity, and it's the same with building IT systems and building enterprises. You need to consider your design. One proposed method to work with this is architectural models, or sometimes it's called threat modeling. So basically you build a model by generating it from data or building it by your own. Then you simulate attacks on this model in a software tool, and then you make well-informed decisions. With these complex enterprises that I've been describing, as you probably understand, it's difficult to build a model from scratch yourself. This you can do in an isolated environment when you want to test certain decisions. But in general, what you need to do is you need to take data that you already have, maybe from vulnerability scanners or different logs or inventory systems, and you merge this data and build a model of your enterprise. This has been done in research and in practice, and it's an emerging technology. To do the simulations on this model, we consider the most promising aspect here to be attack trees or attack graphs built on probabilistic methods like the Bayesian network. Imagine a simple example, like someone is trying to break into your house. Well, what can they do? They can either go into your door or through your window. Well, how do they do that? Well, for the door, they can either pick your lock, they can use an axe, or they can simply get a hold of the key. This kind of attack can be described in a graph, and then you can add defenses. You could say that, well, if I buy a really good door that's made of steel, well, then you can't use the axe, or using the axe will take longer time. If you have a really good lock, you probably can't pick it. And if you take care of your key, well, that's not an option either. So you really limit the possibilities of someone breaking into your house. It's the exact same thing with IT attacks. You build this kind of graph, you simulate the attacks, and you add defenses to see what kind of impact they have. So with this CAD analogy methodology, once you've generated your model and run your attack simulation, the third step is to make decisions, do analysis and make decisions. So what can we change to make it more secure? Traditionally, traditional approaches like 10 years back and up to today, a lot of these tools that are available and methods that are available are focusing on one vulnerability, one technical vulnerability. So looking at a software and see, okay, are there any known threats to this one that someone can exploit, and then trying to fix that. But with this complex environment that we're looking at, where everything is connected, you need to look at the structural vulnerabilities. So most attackers, they don't exploit one thing in a single point of time. They use a combination of many vulnerabilities. And those can be technical vulnerabilities, like these software ones. But it could also be that people are not security aware. It could be that there's a badly configured firewall. And together, these form a bigger threat. We call it structural vulnerabilities. There are different use cases for this CAD kind of methodology when it comes to security. One that I've been talking a little bit about is designing a more secure system. Basically looking at one point in time, doing a risk assessment and see, okay, where can I spend my budget to make the most out of it? The second one is using it more like a monitoring tool, but you're doing these simulations, continuously trying to figure out what is happening in the world and what is happening with my system, and proactively making decisions on a daily basis.